Title: The Spartan Mirage, Myth versus Reality in the Peloponnesian War. Introduction. Introduce the concept of the Spartan Mirage, the idealized view of Sparta as a society of unparalleled discipline, strength, and resilience. This perception, fostered by both Spartan propaganda and external admiration, painted Sparta as an invincible, cohesive military power. State the thesis. While the myth of Sparta influenced the course of the Peloponnesian War, the realities of Spartan society, economic fragility, dependence on the Helot population, and political limitations revealed significant weaknesses that contradicted its legendary image. Section 1. The Origins of the Spartan Mirage. Spartan Discipline and the Warrior Ethos. Explore the origins of the Spartan Mirage in the rigorous training of Spartan citizens through the Agoge, an education system designed to produce disciplined warriors dedicated to the state. This training and lifestyle set Sparta apart from other Greek city-states, creating an aura of Spartan exceptionalism. Discuss how the Spartan lifestyle and emphasis on austerity were romanticized by both Greeks and non-Greeks. Writers such as Herodotus and Xenophon admired Sparta's simplicity, discipline, and unity, which contributed to the myth of an invincible warrior society. Spartan propaganda and control of image. Explain how Sparta actively cultivated this image by isolating itself from outside influences and strictly controlling contact with foreigners. This contributed to an aura of mystery and exclusivity, enhancing the perception of Sparta as a society that was both disciplined and pure. Mention that while Spartan leaders promoted this idealized image of themselves, this was often a strategic move to project strength and intimidate rivals. By embracing the Spartan Mirage, Sparta maintained a psychological edge over its adversaries. Section 2. Military Realities of the Spartan Army. Strengths and limitations of the Spartan phalanx. While the Spartan phalanx was a powerful force on the battlefield, driven by cohesion and discipline, it was also rigid and inflexible. Spartan warriors were trained primarily for close-order hoplite warfare, making them less adaptable to irregular or unpredictable forms of combat. Analyze how the Spartan army's strength in traditional hoplite battle contributed to its reputation, but its narrow military focus limited its effectiveness in non-hoplite warfare, such as naval battles or protracted sieges, which became critical in the Peloponnesian War. Dependence on allies for naval power. Discuss how the Peloponnesian War forced Sparta to adapt beyond its traditional land-based strengths. Lacking a strong navy, Sparta had to rely on allies such as Corinth and, eventually, on Persian support to fund and build a fleet capable of challenging Athenian dominance at sea. The need for Persian financial support contradicted the idealized Spartan image of self-sufficiency and independence, revealing a vulnerability in its military strategy. The alliance with Persia highlighted Sparta's dependence on external resources and support, challenging the Spartan mirage of invincibility. Section 3. Economic and social vulnerabilities of Sparta. The Helot system and economic fragility. Sparta's economy was built on the labor of the Helots, an enslaved population that worked the land and provided the economic foundation of Spartan society. The constant threat of Helot revolts meant that a significant portion of Spartan resources and manpower were devoted to suppressing and controlling the Helot population. The reliance on the Helots created an underlying instability within Sparta. The need to maintain a constant military presence at home limited Sparta's ability to project power over long distances and hindered its ability to respond flexibly in prolonged conflicts. Limited economic base and resource shortages. Unlike Athens, which had access to wealth from its empire and trade networks, Sparta's limited economic base made it difficult to sustain long-term military campaigns. Spartan society discouraged commerce and wealth accumulation, leaving it financially ill-equipped to match Athens' prolonged war effort. When forced to adapt to naval warfare, Sparta's lack of resources became evident, as it had to turn to Persia for support. This dependence on Persian funding exposed Sparta's economic fragility and contradicted its reputation as a self-sufficient and independent power. Section 4. The political realities of Spartan society. Political conservatism and resistance to change. Sparta's conservative political structure, centered on the dual kingship and the Gerousia, Council of Elders, promoted stability but also hindered adaptation, Sparta's resistance to political innovation limited its ability to respond dynamically to the demands of the Peloponnesian War. The rigidity of Spartan politics, while valuable for maintaining internal control, proved to be a weakness in a rapidly changing conflict, as Sparta struggled to compete with the more flexible and strategically adaptive Athenian democracy. Challenges in managing allies and conquered territories. Although Sparta managed to defeat Athens, it was poorly equipped to govern an empire. Its oligarchic model and reliance on installing pro-Spartan oligarchies in other city-states fostered resentment and frequent uprisings among allies and subjected territories. The collapse of the Spartan hegemony after the Peloponnesian War illustrated the limitations of Sparta's political system in managing an empire. The myth of Spartan unity and control was undermined as Sparta struggled to maintain cohesion among its allies, leading to internal conflicts and contributing to its eventual decline. Section 5. The Spartan Mirage in the context of the Peloponnesian War. How the Mirage influenced Athenian strategy. The myth of Spartan invincibility initially influenced Athenian strategy, leading Athens to avoid direct land confrontations with Sparta's formidable hoplites. This perception shaped the Athenian approach, as they relied heavily on naval power and indirect strategies. However, as the war progressed, Athens began to recognize and exploit the limitations of Spartan power, particularly its lack of naval resources and economic limitations, leading to a more balanced assessment of Spartan capabilities. The Spartan Mirage and its long-term consequences. The Spartan Mirage endured even after the Peloponnesian War, as later Greek states and even non-Greeks continued to admire and fear Sparta's military prowess. However, the collapse of Spartan hegemony after the Battle of Leuctra in 371 BC revealed the vulnerability and internal fragility of the Spartan system. Reflect on how the enduring myth of Spartan strength masked the underlying weaknesses that would ultimately contribute to Sparta's decline. The Spartan Mirage had real impacts on Greek politics but was ultimately unsustainable, as the realities of economic fragility, social tension, and limited adaptability led to Sparta's eventual downfall. Conclusion. Summarize how the concept of the Spartan Mirage influenced both perceptions and strategies in the Peloponnesian War. While the idealized image of Sparta as an invincible, unified power had real psychological impacts on its rivals, the realities of Spartan society revealed significant vulnerabilities that were at odds with this myth. The Helot system and economic fragility. The Spartan economy was heavily dependent on the Helot population, a subjugated class that farmed the land and provided the resources needed to sustain Sparta's military-focused society. The Helots were not slaves in the traditional sense but were subjugated through conquest and lived in a constant state of oppression. This system allowed Spartan citizens to dedicate their lives to military training and service, yet it was a source of perpetual instability, as the Helots frequently revolted. Sparta's need to suppress Helot uprisings required a significant portion of its manpower to remain in the Peloponnese, limiting its ability to project power over long distances. This reliance on a disenfranchised class contradicted the Spartan mirage of a self-reliant and stable society, as internal unrest continually threatened Spartan security. Limited economic base and resource shortages. Unlike the trade-rich Athens, Sparta's economy was closed and discouraged commercial activities. The Spartan aversion to wealth and luxury limited its ability to accumulate resources needed for long-term military campaigns. When Sparta was forced to build a navy, its lack of financial resources became a critical obstacle, and it struggled to compete with Athens' well-funded and technologically advanced fleet. This economic limitation forced Sparta to seek Persian aid, revealing the reality behind the mirage. Despite its ideals of self-sufficiency, Sparta's survival depended on external support. The myth of Spartan resilience masked an underlying economic vulnerability that would continue to plague Sparta even after its victory over Athens, contributing to its eventual decline as a major Greek power. Section 4. The political realities of Spartan society. Political conservatism and resistance to change. The Spartan government was highly conservative, focused on stability and tradition. The dual kingship and the Gerousia, Council of Elders, were designed to maintain a balance of power, but they also restricted political flexibility. This resistance to change limited Sparta's capacity to adapt to the shifting demands of the Peloponnesian War, particularly as the conflict required prolonged campaigns and more complex forms of governance. Sparta's conservative nature contributed to its short-lived hegemony following the Peloponnesian War. When it attempted to impose pro-Spartan oligarchies on other Greek city-states, its rigid governance model fostered resentment and led to frequent uprisings, revealing that Sparta